सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. ॐ गङ्गणपतये नमः. ॐ श्री राधाकृष्णाय नमः. ॐ श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. So I just request people to move in front. Leave the door closed, one door closed, because it's a smaller class and you may not feel, there's no AC at the back, so you might feel a little bit more comfortable up front. Private session, according to Pinky. I'm still getting used to the new microphone. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So welcome everyone, welcome to those who are here in person braving the heat wave, and welcome to those who are watching the class online later. So we are studying Sadhana Pancakam, which is packed with a punch. Okay, I'll listen and repeat. We saw this first verse already, but we'll just review it. Vedo Nityamadhiyatam, Vedo Nityamadiyatam, Taduditam karmasvanushthiyatam, Taduditam karmasvanushthiyatam, Teneshasya vidhiyatam, Teneshasya vidhiyatam, Apachitif kamye matistyajyatam, Apachitif kamye matistyajyatam, Papaughaf paridhuyatam, Papaughaf paridhuyatam, Bhavasukhe dosho nusandhiyatam, Bhavasukhe dosho nusandhiyatam, Atmecha vyavasiyatam, Atmecha vyavasiyatam, Nijagruhaturnam vinirgamyatam, Nijagruhaturnam vinirgamyatam. I hope you all are reading the meaning as we're chanting. So we saw this first verse we completed last time. And remember, Sadhana Pancakam is also called Sopana Pancakam. Sopana means a ladder or a flight of steps. So this verse 1 is the first set of eight rungs on that ladder. It begins with Vedaha Nityam Adhiyatam, do some scriptural study every day, mainly meant for the brahmachari, whose main responsibility was to study. Then it goes up to the Grahastha ashrama, where it says, Tad uditam karma swanushthiyatam, do your karmas well, implement your swadharma, do them as a worship. Do it as karma yoga. So converting our karmas to karma yoga is a huge topic in the Bhagavad Gita. And karma yoga really implies what attitude are you doing any action with, whether it's an action that you have to do, it's a required, or any responsibility. How are you doing your actions? And this karma yoga attitude helps to turn us away from looking outward for gaining lasting happiness, lasting peace, towards the self, towards Atma. And when this discernment has become very strong, the Grahastha, whoever does it, I'm just saying Grahastha because most of us in this room, and probably many of those who are watching, are in this phase of our life. When this discernment from looking outward to looking inward for that lasting peace and lasting happiness becomes strong, the Grihastha becomes a mumukshu, a seeker. A seeker, he wants to learn how to get that Atma, knowledge of Atma, the knowledge of the self, for everlasting peace. And the mumukshu, the seeker, is told what? Nija gruhat turnam vinirgamyatam. Leave your house immediately. Implying a vanaprastha stage in the ashrama system of scheme of things. For us, obviously, anybody left your house since last week? We ended the class last week around this. So none of us are going to leave our homes, and it's not required. What it means, what it implies for us is to decrease our karmas, our outwardly turned activities. We have to do what we need to do. We have to do it with the right attitude, but decrease karmas that are not required. For example, I know many of you have told me that as you come to these teachings and as you're with these teachings for longer and longer periods of time, many times when you go to social gatherings, the conversations there don't seem very meaningful to you because they're usually talking about politics, the weather, food, what is the newest movie, what is the newest, it can even turn to what is the newest spiritual lecture they heard on YouTube. So what for us what it means to leave the house is to decrease these activities which don't contribute to our spiritual growth. These conversations which don't contribute to our spiritual growth. And that gives you time to do more Atma Vichara, to be sitting with yourself, to reflect, to do more meditation. And so when you decrease this extrovertedness, extrovertedness obviously, and introvertedness is not in the psychological sense I'm talking about, when you turn towards yourself, to reflect on these teachings. Of course, if you stop your extroverted activity and you're sitting by yourself and turning inwards and all you see there is anger and irritation and jealousy, that's a good sign because those are the things that we need to be working on for climbing up that spiritual ladder. So that's the first verse, and we began the second verse last time. We'll just listen and repeat. Sangasatsu vidhiyatam, sangasatsu vidhiyatam, bhagavato bhaktir drudha dhiyatam, bhagavato bhaktir drudha dhiyatam, shantyadif parichiyatam, Shantyadif parichiyatam dridataram karmashu santyajyatam dridataram karmashu santyajyatam sadvidvanupasripyatam sadvidvanupasripyatam pratidinam tatpaduka sevyatam pratidinam tatpaduka sevyatam brahmaikaksharamardhyatam brahmaikaksharamardhyatam shruti shiro vakyam samakarnyatam shruti shiro vakyam samakarnyatam. So we saw the first quarter in the last class of the second verse, what to do after leaving the house, or what to do after you have become more introverted, after you have stopped looking for that happiness outside. So if you stop pursuing your goals, thinking they're going to make you happy, and you sit and look inside, and you don't see that happiness, you're going to be in a limbo state, and you're going to be thinking, I'm not getting anything out of this. So then what do? Back to our worldly activities. So here what it says, what to do after leaving the house, when we shift our focus from worldly happiness to Atma Ananda, how do we increase this inclination to want to know our true nature? How to maintain it? How do we nourish it? And the answer was, Sangaha Satsu Vidhiyatam. Seek spiritual Sangha. Satsanga means like good company. So it says seek like-minded people who are on the same path as you. And that was Satsanga. So there was a joke I heard about two friends who were talking to each other. I have to preface saying it's a joke, because what if you guys don't laugh? I'm giving you a warning sign. Be prepared for it. So there were these two friends talking to each other, and one of them said, I've started attending daily satsanga to better myself. So the other guy said, oh, that's great. How do you feel? What has it changed you? And the first guy says, absolutely. So second guy asks, how? So the first guy says, before, when people insulted me, when they shouted at me, when they made me angry, I would shout back immediately. I would fire back. I would get so angry and so upset that I didn't have control over my words. So what happened now after attending satsanga? He said, now, thanks to the satsanga, I just sit calmly and I smile and I think, may the law of karma destroy you and 7 generations of yours. So obviously, not the reason to attend satsanga. The next part of this verse says, the second quarter of this verse, Bhagavataha bhaktihi dridha adhiyatam. Adhiyatam, learn or cultivate. Cultivate what? Dridha bhakti. Dridha means firm or unshakable, intense bhakti, devotion, or it can also be taken as meditation. For what? Bhagavataha, towards God, for God. So what are the benefits of satsanga? One, obviously, you are in the company of like-minded people, and this useless extroverted chatter, gossip, or talk, which doesn't really contribute to our spiritual growth, that doesn't happen in a satsanga. Hopefully, that doesn't happen in a satsanga. You know, people are amazingly creative. Even when you go for a satsanga, after the satsanga is over, usually you find people chatting, and, the conversations can range from what you've heard at the satsanga to politics again, or to food. And food becomes a big thing, when we gather, when we have a gathering, a spiritual gathering, and food is obviously a big part of our culture. When you share food with others, it's just interesting if you observe while you're eating or while you have your plate with you, just observe others and see where the conversation goes. It's very interesting, very revealing of what is important for another person, right after satsanga. So what are the benefits of satsanga? One is you gain devotion for Ishvara, devotion for God. And you may ask, why do I need to cultivate bhakti or devotion? Obvious reasons. When you have that love for Ishvara, or you have that bhakti towards Ishvara, it gives a tremendous emotional, mental strength, capacity, capacity to bear difficult situations in life. Even for most of us, many of us, the concept of Ishvara, a deity on the altar, is still very limited, because we have our childhood impressions of a God in heaven, or a God sitting somewhere else in some other loka, who is going to, when we pray to that God, all our problems are going to go away. All our prayers are going to be answered. If that is your vision or your concept of prayer, it's not bad, because even in Advaita Vedanta, we start at a very low level with, I shouldn't say low, we start at this level of a relationship with God. We start at a dualistic level of how we relate to God. And it's not bad, because that gives us strength. That gives us the ability to face challenges in our life. So until we get to a much Advaitic level, Advaitic understanding, a non-dualistic understanding of who Ishvara is, who God is, continue to cultivate bhakti, continue to pray, continue to develop devotion. For those of us who are born and raised in a fairly, in a Hindu, in a religious atmosphere, religious upbringing, it seems a no-brainer. You pray to God. But many of us, many people, don't have that opportunity. Not only in other religions, actually maybe other religions, they have it a little bit more, because they have, you have to go to Sunday school, or you have to go to church on Sunday. But even among other sects in Hindu cultures, or in different families, you may not have had this exposure to devotion, to bhakti, as you're growing up. So it becomes even more important. Satsanga, association with good people, becomes even more important to develop bhakti. And another reason why it's said to cultivate dhrudataram bhakti, to cultivate this firm bhakti, is that it helps us weaken our ego, weaken our ahankara. Because if we go about, not because most of the time we go about our daily activities saying, I did this, I am doing this. So when you come to a stage of bhakti where you're offering your actions to Ishvara, there is a dilution of that kartrutvam, the sense of doership. So bhakti helps us grow in that way. So the rung 10 of the ladder, develop bhakti, love for God. Then the next third line on the slide, shantyadihi parichiyatam. Parichiyatam means collect or gather. Gather what? Virtues like shanti, etc. Shanti means peace. Shanti Adi. Adi literally, in loosely we translate it as etc., but it literally means the one who's, the group which begins with Shanti, blah, 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 blah. And this Shanti Adi really comes from the sixfold, a group of sixfold qualities that's described in the Tattva Bodha and other texts. The Shamadi Shatka Sampattihi. Shama Adi, again. Shama means a mind control or thought discipline, and Adi, so that group of Shatka, 6 Sampattihi, 6 disciplines or 6 qualities. Shama means mind control or thought discipline, which means I choose what my mind entertains. How often does that really happen? For most of us, the mind is choosing whatever it wants to think about. How often do we deliberately entertain a thought in our mind? So that kind of mind control or thought discipline is shamaha. Damaha is sense control, discipline of the sense organs. The most, and our sense organs are sight, hearing, eyes, hearing, sense of taste, touch, smell. One of the most difficult sense organs to control, most of you know the answer, is the tongue. The tongue, which actually has two purposes. One is for the taste, which most of us cannot control, and one is for speaking. If you don't have a tongue, or people who've unfortunately have had to lose part of their tongue, they have to go through speech therapy to learn how to speak, because the tongue is such an important organ for speech. So the two things in our life that we are so good at doing, eating and speaking nonsense, we don't have control over. So this damaha is sense control, discipline of the sense organs. Third in that group of 6 is uparatihi or uparamaha. Uparatihi or uparama means withdrawal or restraint. Our mind and our senses shouldn't be running towards things that are not healthy for us, not conducive for our spiritual growth. Either physical objects like food, which is not healthy for us, or even mental thoughts like harming somebody or cheating someone. Those are not good mental habits. So it's really important to quiet the mind and the senses. Not only when we are alone, which is fairly easy, because if nobody is around to talk to, you still talk, you still have your mental chatter. But it becomes even more important when you're in the company of other people, when there are people around you. There is a story of this spiritual seeker, a sadhaka, who spent 10 years in an ashram, and he was practicing shama and dhamma, mind control and sense control. And he finally felt he had conquered this. He had become an expert in shama and dhamma. So he decided to return to the city, to the chaotic city. So he was coming in a bus, sitting in a crowded bus, in sweltering heat on a day like today, during rush hour. So you have to imagine in India, if you're sitting in one of these mufassal or town buses, how crowded it is in peak hour time on a hot day. And a man, while he was sitting, a man accidentally stepped on his foot. So he stepped on his foot and heavily. So the sadhaka smiled serenely and thought, I am the detached witness of my throbbing foot. I forgive you. I forgive this guy. So he kept quiet. He's got this shama and dhamma. He's mastered. A few minutes later, the bus jerked, and the same man spilled a hot cup of coffee all over the seeker's white robes. The seeker took a deep breath, counted to 3, and thought, this is just my past karma clearing out, coming into play. I remain peaceful. Bus is going along, and the seeker, the bus stop where the seeker has to get off has come. So just as he's about to get off the bus stop, the same man accidentally bumps into the seeker, and the seeker's expensive smartphone goes flinging across the bus, and it shatters. Do you think the seeker is going to be sitting there, standing and saying, I am peaceful, I forgive you, this is my karma playing out? He gets really furious. He grabs the man by the collar, shakes him and screams at him and says, listen, you idiot, I have practiced 10 years of absolute inner peace. and controlling my mind and my senses. And if you test my tranquility even one more time, I'm going to break your face. So what happened to the 10 years of practicing Shama and Dhamma while in solitude? It just evaporated in a few minutes when the cell phone went to the floor. So it's very easy to practice when you're sitting by yourself, but when you are in a quiet room. But when you are with others, so the real test of this part of the verse, Shanti Adi Parichiyatam, is keeping that peace, continuing to keep that sense control and mind control when life steps on your toes, when life throws a cup of hot coffee in your face, or when life shatters your cell phone, when your children don't listen to you, when your spouse and you have an argument, when your boss is shouting at you especially for a mistake that you didn't do. Shama Dhamma. This is the uparatihi, the uparama, withdrawal or restraint of our mind and senses. Then the fourth sampattihi in the group of 6 is titiksha, or forbearance. It's also endurance or inner strength to face the inevitable opposites in life. On a day like today, how often in the past few days have you thought about how hot it is, or have you conversed with somebody about the heat wave? If the sun is there, it's going to be hot. There is a heat wave going on. So endurance, so this inner capacity to bear pairs of opposites. The next one is Shraddha, or faith. Shraddha meaning faith, but not just blind faith. It is trust pending verification of what the Guru and the scriptures are telling you. If something you hear from a teacher doesn't sit well with you, most of the time, many times, our mind rebels. How can, especially if somebody you don't know, if you're listening to that person for the first time, and you at once say, how can he or she say that? Because you're listening with your blinders on, with what you think you understand. So it's always good to give the benefit of the doubt to the teacher, and to kind of recognize, maybe there's some obstacle in myself, in me, that I'm not understanding exactly what is being said. And then you work. That's an opportunity for growth. You can work on that obstacle. And over time, when you repeatedly listen to the scriptures, of course, it has to be a competent guru. When you repeatedly listen to the words of the teacher, to the words of the scriptures as explained by the teacher, you get it. And if you don't get it, there is opportunity for questioning. That's really the fundament. We'll talk about that in a little in the next verse, I think. So instead of saying, when you don't understand what somebody is saying, instead of saying, he or she doesn't know anything, you can just turn it and say, maybe I don't understand. I have some deficiencies that I might need to correct. And the last one is samadhanam, which is one-pointed concentration or a non-wavering mind. So these shanti adi parichiyatam, these virtues, these disciplines, are important for us to cultivate on our spiritual path for self-discovery. And the last line on the slide, dhridataram karmashu santyajyatam. Santyajyatam. Tyajyatam, give up. Santyajyatam, give up completely. Dhridataram, firmly. What? Karma ashu. Karma means karmas and ashu means quickly. So the verse is saying, give up your karmas firmly, quickly. And if you've been paying attention to the class, you might wonder, hey, in the first verse it says, do your karmas well. Taduditam karma swanushtiyatam, do them well. So what is this verse saying? This fourth line actually is addressing the life of a sannyasa or a sannyasi. When you reach after the vanaprastha stage, if you take sannyasa, then for sannyasis, they don't, in fact, there are rituals during the sannyasa diksha is when you give up all karmas. You are no longer responsible for karmas. For us, most of us are not taking sannyasa right away. I don't know if any of us will. So what does karma mean for us? Here, karma for non-sannyasis means sakama karma, means karmas that we do based on our desires, karmas that we do to gain some material end. So these desire-based karmas, or any karma that we do to gain happiness from outside. That is, so it says, give up those karmas quickly and firmly, and let your main only pursuit be Atma Jnanam, the happiness or Atma Ananda, seeking that happiness inward. Even if, so I know many of you are retired and maybe, babysitting, taking care of grandchildren. So you might be in your vanaprastha stage in life. Even if you are not, even not having taken sannyasa, for any of us, is to have a mental detachment in some sense towards activities that are not going to help us. The scriptures don't tell us stop doing any karma. It's just what helps is becoming detached, quote unquote detached, not in an unhealthy way, but in a way, in a thinking, in a mindset that says, I am prepared to lose anything and everything at any time. It's a mental shift. You can continue to live in your comfortable home, continue to do your grandparent or parently duties. But the fact is, all this can go away from us in a minute. Either, if you see the Venezuela earthquake that happened, in a flash of a second, how many thousands of people just gone? So things can go away, or we can go away. That's the reality of life. So just to shift our thinking, to be prepared and say, I am prepared to lose anything and everything mentally. The next half of the verse, Sat Vidwan Upasripyatam. So Upasripyatam, approach properly, approach correctly. Who? A Sat Vidwan, a true teacher. So earlier half of the verse had said satsanga, hanging out with like-minded people. But when you hang out with like-minded people where there is no guru or teacher present, it's a good thing, no doubt, but you may not learn anything. You may not learn about this Atma Ananda. So this part of this line is saying, Sadvidvan Upasripyatam. So approach a guru or follow a guru who can lead you to discover that truth about yourself. And who is a guru? A true guru, a Sat Vidwan, is a Sat Purusha. Purusha means a person, and Sat meaning a truth. Sat has many different meanings in the dictionary. Truth or a good person. But a true guru, we've seen it in other classes also, is one who is a Shrotriyavit, meaning who is endowed, who knows the scriptures, who has studied the scriptures well, which means he or she has studied from another guru, and he or she is a good communicator. But the second qualification of a true guru or a Satvidvan is a Brahmanishta. So one who not only knows the teachings, knows how to communicate, but also lives the life, who abides. There's an American phrase, right? Walk the walk and talk the talk, something like that. Yeah. So a Satguru, a true guru, is one who not only talks the talk, but also walks the walk. There is some people who believe in some subsects of Hindu religion, who believe in like a transmission of knowledge from a guru. Transmission meaning the guru can just touch your head, or the guru is no longer alive, but that knowledge can come through into you. Transmission without teaching, without words. I really don't know how any of that works. If it works for you, great, but really no teaching can take place without words, without actually being there. And if a guru is transmitting from some other loka, how can you ask questions to that guru, right? So, importance of satsanga, having a guru, being in the presence of a guru. And the next line says, Pratidinam tat paduka sevyatam. So once you approach a guru, upasripyatam, what do? Sevyatam, serve or worship. Tat paduka, worship what? His or her. Paduka means sandals, can also mean feet. And pratidinam, every day. So this line, obviously some people might have a problem with it, but it's really telling us the attitude we need to have when we approach a learned person, when we approach a guru. We kind of take it for granted in the current world, and the internet and YouTube and all that, how difficult it was for these teachings, for people to get these teachings just maybe in our lifetime, 50, 100 years back. Firstly, if you were not a non-Brahmana, you wouldn't get these teachings. If you're a woman, you're out. So we really take this for granted. So it's really how to approach the guru and worship, paduka, serve at his or her feet, for showing our gratitude for these teachings that we're getting from the guru. Paduka, serving the paduka of the guru doesn't mean you sit at the guru and massage his or her feet. Puja Swami had a joke. He said, it's, you get these little toys or dolls, I'm thinking, where you press them or squeeze them and they make some noise, right? Like, or for little kids. So it's not like you press the guru's feet and then he suddenly starts talking. So it's not a literal fitting, literal touch, literal pressing of the guru's feet. Serving the guru, supporting his feet or supporting his paduka, serving the paduka really represents supporting the guru's life and what the guru stands for. So most sannyasis, a sannyasi guru especially, has left all his or her other responsibilities, doesn't have a means of support. So as students, we need to serve and worship, serve the guru, serve what he or she stands for. Another reason to serve at the feet or at the paduka of the guru is the feet represent the lowest part of our body. So when you bow down to the guru, to the feet, you are showing your humility. Another way that your ahankara, your ego, can get diluted. So for this reason, sevyatam, serve the guru. And there is there's a shloka in one of the scriptures, I forget one, that it says you should never approach a king, a temple, or a guru empty-handed. And this very practical reason, I don't know about king, but a practical reason for a guru is because you're supporting the guru in his or her daily needs. And the guru is giving us knowledge that is beyond what we can learn on our own, and this knowledge is coming through his or her words. So by serving the guru, you are kind of serving the guru. Of course, serving the guru is important, but obviously listening to the teachings of the guru is more important for our growth. But serving the guru, serving the padukas can also mean you are keeping in tune with what the teacher is saying, the words of the guru. And the service is meant to tune our minds to be in sync with the guru. a very beautiful, in many Hindu traditions, they have the guru on the altar, not the very orthodox traditions, but guru is elevated to the level of Ishvara. So we can recognize that this guru is, that Ishvara has come in this form of a guru to give us, enlighten us, to teach us. So up to now, that was Pratidinam Tat Paduka Sevyadam. Up to now, the verses the lines spoke about preparatory sadhanas, preparatory disciplines for the seeker, and now the student is ready for deeper inquiry. And what does the teacher need to do? He or she what does the seeker need to do? He or she needs to ask the guru. Ask the guru for what? Brahmaikaksharam arthyatam. Arthyatam, request or ask to know the meaning of what? Brahma eka aksharam. Aksharam, undecaying. Brahma eka, the one, so two meanings. The one undecaying syllable, which means Om, but it also means Brahman. Om stands for Brahman. So after doing seva for a length of time and a rapport is developed between the guru and the student is required to ask the student is required to ask the guru to teach, ask for this knowledge. The guru, if he or she is an enlightened person, doesn't really need to do anything, right? They are content in themselves, with themselves. They can just be sitting around and reveling in their own ananda, in their own Atma Swarupa. But if we want to know, we need to ask. So we need to request the teachings to know this imperishable, non-dual Brahman, which is not subject to decay and decline, meaning we need to ask the teacher, the guru, to teach us what this Brahman is, and then eventually, with these teachings, the guru can show us that we are not separate from that Brahman. Important to ask questions only sometimes there are, like I know in some of the Shankaracharya mathas, people are it's a beautiful practice. They are so devoted to the Mathadipati, the main Shankaracharya at the present times in the four mathas, that they will not do anything without asking the guru. And this sometimes some people take it to such an extent that even if they have to step out of the house, they'll ask the Mathadipati, is this a right time to step out of the house? So for us, if you follow those practices and it works for you, obviously no harm. But for us to understand, not to ask the guru trivial questions. And for yourself if you've asked a guru trivial questions. What do you like to eat? A guru has his or her ananda, ultimate ananda in himself or herself. Most enlightened people and most sannyasis, I shouldn't say most, many sannyasis don't really care about food because they take food as bhiksha, as alms. So eat whatever is given. I don't know what other trivial question I can't think of, but you can think of some question you may have wanted to ask, but hopefully curtailed yourself. Ask questions on how to know Brahman. The guru is available for that. So ask that. And the guru teaches us that this jnanam, this knowledge, is obtained through shravana, manana, and nididhyasana, and that will come in the next verse shortly. Another thing to remember is ask the guru to learn, not to test his or her knowledge. Firstly, if you have the breadth and depth of the knowledge that a true guru has, you'll be the guru. You don't need to ask the guru. So don't ask, and it's obviously impolite, but there are people who do that, and sometimes when you see some of the comments on YouTube that come on Swamiji's channel, you can see, you can make out a lot from the questioner the comment, what the questioner is about, what the personality of the questioner is. And then the last line of this verse, Shruti Shiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Akarnyatam, karna means ears. So akarnyatam, listen, samakarnyatam, listen well or listen systematically to what? Vakyam, the statements or the words of what? Shruti Shiraha. Shiraha means head and Shruti means the Vedas. So literally head of the Vedas, and Shruti Shira is a code word for Upanishads, for the ultimate teachings of Veda, the Vedantas, the culminating teachings. If you know Sanskrit, you might be able to read the Upanishads on your own. You might get some understanding of the language, but really you need a guru to correctly interpret what is being said in the scriptures. And here Vakyam really means Mahavakyam. Mahavakyam is any statement in the scriptures that shows the identity between the jiva, the individual, and Brahman or Ishvara, between jiva and the whole, between Paramatma. So it says, listen attentively, samakarnyatam, to what the guru is saying. Not a casual listening. Not a listening once a week when you come to class here. Not a listening when you feel like. But Swami Paramarthananda-ji uses these words, which I love, a systematic, consistent listening for a length of time. That is what Shravana is. We'll talk about the definition in a little bit. So a competent guru can unfold these Mahavakyas, and there are many Mahavakyas, like Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi. We usually quote one from each of the four Vedas, but there are many, many Mahavakyas in the scriptures. So a competent guru unfolds the Mahavakyam and shows you that whatever you're seeking is not outside of you. It's also not inside of you. It is you. So that's what the Mahavakyam is showing us. Okay, so this is our next climb up the ladder for this verse. It says, step number 9, I'll read this in. Where is that here? Sangha Satsu Vidhiyatam, seek spiritual-minded people, keep the company of spiritual-minded people. Bhagavataha bhaktihi dhrudadiyatam, develop firm love for God. Shantyadihi parichiyatam, cultivate values, external and internal disciplines. Dhridataram karmashu santyajyatam, firmly and completely give up all our karmas based on our desires, doing karmas for the sake of gaining that fulfillment. Then sadvidvan upasripyatam, approach 13, approach a guru who knows and teaches and lives the truth. Pratidinam tat paduka sevyatam, serve and support the guru daily. Brahmaikaksharam arthyatam, ask for the meaning of Brahma, of Brahman, or for the meaning of Om, that knowledge that can set us free. And Shruti Shiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam, listen carefully, listen well to the teachings of the scriptures as the Guru unfolds the Mahavakyam, showing us the identity of Jiva and Paramatma. So I think the next verse takes a slightly different turn, so we'll keep that for the next class. So take-home message for today: consistent, systematic listening for a length of time, not once a week. Continue your studies, and I know many of you are part of the 6-month online course where you're required to study at least an hour every day. and you're given assignments to do that. So continue with that. Decreasing, and now with summer coming up, a lot of social gatherings bound to happen. Not saying don't go for those gatherings, but just observe yourself when you're at those gatherings, and that will help you grow. Okay. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amrutangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all for coming. I'll see you next time.